The ancient secret that turns food into medicine, ***, my brothers and sisters, listen carefully. Most people do not die because of fate. They die 3 times a day at the breakfast table, at lunch, and at dinner. Yes, we are eating death. Food is not just something we consume to survive. It is something that actively shapes the direction of our life. Every bite carries an influence that reaches far beyond calories and nutrients. When we eat without awareness, without gratitude, and without intention, food loses its life, giving power and slowly becomes a source of harm. This is why it can be said that many people are not dying from sudden illness or fate, but from years of unconscious eating. Not because food itself is bad, but because the way it is consumed disconnects it from its original purpose, to sustain, to heal, and to give life. In ancient times, eating was considered a sacred act. Meals were not rushed or treated as background noise to conversation or distraction. People understood that food comes from the earth, and the earth itself was seen as a living system created to support human life. Before eating, there was always a pause. Sometimes it was a blessing, sometimes a prayer, sometimes simple silence. That pause was not symbolic. It was functional. It aligned the mind and the body so that the food could be received properly. When the mind is calm and present, the body opens itself to nourishment instead of resistance. Modern life has reversed this wisdom. Today, food is often eaten while standing, driving, scrolling, or worrying. Stress has become a constant companion at the table. When the nervous system is in a state of tension, the body interprets eating as a threat rather than support. Digestion weakens, inflammation rises, and the very thing meant to heal begins to burden the system. Over time, this creates fatigue, illness, and imbalance. It is not the food alone that damages the body, but the emotional and mental state in which it is eaten. Ancient teachings understood that emotions are not separate from physical processes. Anger, fear, and anxiety change how the body functions. When these emotions are present during eating, they become part of the meal. The body does not distinguish between emotional toxins and physical ones. It responds to both. This is why 2 people can eat the same food and have completely different outcomes. One may feel energized and satisfied, while the other feels heavy and unwell. The difference is not on the plate, but within the person. The ancient secret that turned food into medicine was awareness. Awareness slows the moment. It brings the eater into the present. A few seconds of stillness before eating sends a powerful message to the body. You are safe. You are supported. You may receive. This simple shift moves the body from survival mode into healing mode. Blood flow improves, digestion activates, and nutrients are absorbed more effectively. What appears to be a spiritual practice is also deeply biological. Blessing food, whether through prayer or gratitude, was never about ritual alone. It was about recognition. Recognition that life is being transferred from one form to another. Recognition that eating is an act of connection, not consumption. When gratitude is present, the body responds with openness. Modern research now supports what ancient wisdom taught. Gratitude reduces stress hormones and improves metabolic function. The sages did not need laboratories to know this. They observed it through life itself. Eating slowly was another essential element of this wisdom. Slowness allows the body to communicate with itself. It gives time for signals of fullness, satisfaction, and balance to arise. When eating is rushed, the body is overwhelmed. It cannot keep pace with the speed of intake, leading to overeating and discomfort. Slowness restores respect between the eater and the food. It turns the meal into an experience rather than an event to finish. To say "stop eating death" does not mean rejecting food, pleasure, or enjoyment. It means rejecting unconsciousness. Death enters not through food, but through neglect of awareness. Life enters when attention is restored. The same meal that once drained energy can become a source of strength when eaten with presence. This is not philosophy, it is practice. Anyone can experience the difference by changing not what they eat, but how they eat. The body is designed to heal itself when given the right conditions. Food is one of those conditions, but only when it is received properly. When meals are approached with calm, gratitude, and intention, the body remembers how to function as it was meant to. Energy increases, clarity improves, and the relationship with food becomes peaceful instead of conflicted. Eating stops being a battle and becomes cooperation. The ancient world did not separate spirituality from daily life. Eating was spiritual because life itself was spiritual. When this understanding was lost, food became mechanical and the body paid the price. Restoring this wisdom does not require extreme diets or rigid rules. It requires a return to respect. Respect for the body, respect for the food, and respect for the moment. In conclusion, food was never meant to be feared or fought. It was meant to be honored. When eaten unconsciously, it becomes heavy and harmful, slowly draining life. When eaten with awareness, it becomes medicine, restoring balance and vitality. The choice is not in the ingredients alone, but in the presence we bring to the table. By pausing, blessing, and eating with intention, we stop eating death and begin eating life. Every meal then becomes an opportunity not just to survive, but to heal, to strengthen, and to truly live. What truly determines the impact of food on the human body is not only its ingredients, but the state of the person who eats it. The same meal can nourish one individual and exhaust another, not because the food changes, but because the inner condition of the eater does. This is why ancient wisdom taught that the way you eat matters more than what you eat. Food enters not just the stomach, but the entire system, mind, body, and soul, and whatever state dominates at that moment becomes part of the digestion process itself. In the modern world, eating has been reduced to a mechanical act. Meals are squeezed between tasks, eaten while multitasking, or consumed under pressure. The body, however, has not evolved to handle nourishment in this way. When a person is stressed, anxious, or distracted, the nervous system shifts into survival mode. In this state, the body prioritizes protection over repair. Digestion slows, absorption weakens, and inflammation increases. Even the healthiest food struggles to deliver its benefits when the body is braced for danger rather than open to receiving. Ancient cultures understood this connection intuitively. They recognized that calmness at the table was essential. Eating was often done in silence or with measured conversation, not because noise was forbidden, but because presence was valued. The act of sitting, breathing, and focusing on the meal created a bridge between the physical and the internal world. This allowed the body to prepare itself properly, signaling that nourishment was coming and that it was safe to relax and assimilate what was given. Emotions play a powerful role in this process. Anger tightens the body, fear restricts it, worry distracts it. When these emotions accompany a meal, they interfere with digestion in very real ways. Muscles tense, blood flow shifts away from the digestive organs, and the body struggles to break down and absorb nutrients. Over time, this repeated interference leads to chronic discomfort, fatigue, and illness. The food itself may be wholesome, but the emotional environment in which it is eaten turns it into a burden. This is why two people can follow the same diet and experience opposite results. One feels lighter, stronger, and healthier, while the other feels bloated and depleted. The difference is not discipline or luck, but awareness. Eating with attention allows the body to work with the food instead of against it. It creates cooperation rather than conflict. Awareness slows the pace, sharpens the senses, and brings the eater into alignment with the act of nourishment. The simple practice of slowing down before and during a meal has profound effects. Taking a moment to breathe, to look at the food, and to acknowledge it changes the internal chemistry of the body. Stress hormones begin to lower, and digestive enzymes increase. The body shifts from a state of defense into a state of repair. This is not a mystical idea. It is a biological response to calm and presence. Ancient wisdom observed it through experience long before science explained it through data. Eating slowly is another expression of this awareness. When food is rushed, the body is forced to react instead of respond. Signals of fullness are missed, leading to overeating. Digestion becomes inefficient, leaving the body tired and uncomfortable. When eating is slow and mindful, the body communicates clearly. Satisfaction arrives naturally, and the need to overconsume disappears. Food becomes enough because it is truly received. The modern obsession with perfect diets often misses this fundamental truth. People change foods constantly, chasing health through restriction and rules, while ignoring the environment in which they eat. No diet can overcome chronic stress, distraction, or emotional tension at the table. Conversely, even simple food can be deeply nourishing when eaten with calm and gratitude. This is not an argument against nutrition, but a reminder that nutrition begins with presence. The way a person eats also shapes their relationship with food. When meals are rushed and unconscious, eating becomes something to control, fear, or escape. When meals are intentional, eating becomes a moment of connection and care. This shift reduces guilt, anxiety, and obsession around food. The body learns to trust again, and hunger and fullness regain their natural rhythm. Over time, the cumulative effect of mindful eating is transformative. Energy stabilizes, digestion improves, and the body becomes more resilient. But perhaps more importantly, eating becomes a daily practice of grounding and balance. In a world that constantly pulls attention outward, the meal becomes a place to return inward, to reconnect with the body, and to restore harmony. In conclusion, the way you eat is not a minor detail. It is a decisive factor in health and vitality. Food does not act alone. It works in partnership with the eater. When meals are approached with stress, distraction, and haste, even the best food loses its healing power. When meals are approached with calm, awareness, and respect, ordinary food becomes deeply nourishing. By changing the way we eat, we change the way food works within us. This ancient truth reminds us that healing does not always begin with changing the plate, but with changing the presence we bring to it. Ancient wisdom taught that the body and the mind are not separate systems, but a single, continuous flow of life. What happens in the inner world immediately influences the physical one. Nowhere is this connection more visible than in the act of eating. Food does not enter an empty space. It enters a living system shaped by thoughts, emotions, and awareness. This is why emotions are not just background noise during a meal. They are ingredients. Whatever emotional state dominates at the moment of eating becomes part of what the body must process. In the modern world, people often underestimate the power of emotions over physical health. Anger, fear, sadness, and anxiety are treated as mental experiences, while digestion is treated as a mechanical process. Ancient teachings rejected this separation. They observed that when a person eats while angry, the body tightens. When one eats in fear, the body contracts. When one eats in peace, the body opens. These physical responses are not symbolic. They are biological reactions that directly affect digestion, absorption, and overall vitality. When anger is present, muscles tense and blood flow is redirected toward defense. The digestive organs receive less support, making it harder to break down food efficiently. This can lead to heaviness, discomfort, and inflammation. Fear has a similar effect, signaling danger to the nervous system and shifting the body into survival mode. In this state, digestion becomes secondary. The body is focused on protection, not nourishment. Over time, repeatedly eating under these emotional conditions weakens the digestive system and drains energy. Gratitude, on the other hand, creates expansion. When a person feels thankful, the nervous system relaxes. Breathing deepens, muscles soften, and blood flow returns to the organs responsible for healing and repair. Food eaten in this state is received rather than resisted. Ancient cultures emphasized gratitude before meals not as a moral obligation, but as a practical tool for health. They understood that gratitude prepares the body to accept nourishment fully. This is why emotional awareness around food is so important. It is not necessary to eliminate negative emotions from life, but it is essential to recognize them at the table. Even a brief pause to acknowledge one's emotional state can prevent that emotion from dominating the meal. Awareness interrupts automatic patterns. It creates space between the emotion and the act of eating, allowing the body to reset before nourishment begins. Modern life often encourages emotional eating as a coping mechanism. Food is used to numb stress, distract from pain, or fill emotional emptiness. While this may bring temporary comfort, it confuses the body's signals. Hunger becomes mixed with emotion, and the body struggles to regulate itself. Ancient wisdom approached food differently. Eating was meant to support life, not to manage unresolved emotions. Emotional balance was addressed through reflection, prayer, or community, not through overeating. When emotions are processed separately from meals, food regains its proper role. Eating becomes simpler and more satisfying. The body no longer has to carry the extra burden of emotional digestion. This clarity restores natural appetite and reduces cravings driven by stress rather than true hunger. The relationship with food becomes cleaner and more respectful. Another key aspect of ancient understanding was the recognition that emotions can be transformed at the table. A person may approach a meal tired or worried, but through presence and gratitude, that state can shift. The act of slowing down, breathing, and acknowledging the food can soften emotional tension. The meal itself becomes a moment of emotional regulation rather than emotional escape. This transforms eating into a healing practice for both body and mind. Over time, consistent emotional awareness during meals builds resilience. The body learns that eating is a safe and supportive experience. Digestive strength improves, energy levels stabilize, and emotional reactions around food diminish. Eating no longer triggers guilt, urgency, or excess. It becomes a grounded, nourishing act that supports overall well-being. This ancient perspective does not demand perfection. It does not require that every meal be peaceful or ceremonial. It simply asks for honesty and presence. If a person notices they are angry, acknowledging it before eating is already a step toward balance. If someone feels anxious, taking a few breaths before the first bite can shift the internal environment. Small moments of awareness accumulate into profound change. In conclusion, emotions are inseparable from the act of eating. They shape how food is received, processed, and experienced by the body. When emotions like anger, fear, or stress dominate a meal, they interfere with digestion and slowly weaken the system. When awareness and gratitude are present, the body opens to nourishment and healing. By recognizing emotions as ingredients and choosing presence at the table, eating becomes an act of care rather than conflict. This ancient wisdom reminds us that true nourishment begins not only with food, but with the emotional state in which it is consumed. The simple act of blessing food before eating was never meant to be a ritual performed out of habit or obligation. In ancient wisdom, a blessing was a practical tool, a conscious pause that activated the body's natural capacity to heal. It marked the transition from activity to nourishment, from distraction to presence. This brief moment carried immense power because it aligned the mind, body, and intention before food entered the system. What appears small on the surface is, in reality, deeply transformative. When a person blesses food, they are not changing the food itself as much as they are changing their internal state. The pause interrupts haste. It slows the nervous system and signals safety. In modern life, most people arrive at meals mentally exhausted emotionally loaded and physically tense. Without a pause, that tension flows directly into digestion. A blessing creates separation between the stress of the day and the act of eating. It draws a line and says, "Now we receive." Ancient cultures understood that the body does not heal in chaos. Healing requires calm, order, and receptivity. The blessing before eating served this purpose. It grounded the person in gratitude and awareness, shifting the body from a state of defense into a state of repair. This shift is not symbolic. When the mind settles, breathing deepens, muscles relax, and digestion activates. The body becomes capable of doing what it was designed to do. Gratitude is at the heart of this process. When gratitude is present, the body interprets the environment as supportive rather than threatening. Stress hormones decrease and restorative processes increase. Food eaten in gratitude is processed differently than food eaten in frustration or anxiety. Ancient teachers observed that people who blessed their food consistently were stronger, calmer, and less prone to illness. They did not explain this in scientific language, but they understood it through lived experience. The blessing also restores respect for food. Instead of seeing food as something to consume quickly or mindlessly, it is recognized as a gift that sustains life. This recognition changes behavior naturally. Eating becomes slower, more attentive, and more balanced. Overeating decreases, not because of restraint, but because satisfaction arrives sooner. The body feels heard and supported. In the absence of blessing or pause, eating often becomes unconscious. Food is eaten while the mind is elsewhere, and the body struggles to keep up. Digestion becomes inefficient, and the body experiences food as a burden rather than nourishment. Over time, this pattern contributes to fatigue, inflammation, and chronic imbalance. The ancient practice of blessing was designed to prevent this exact outcome by restoring consciousness to the meal. Importantly, a blessing does not need to follow a specific formula. While traditional prayers carry deep meaning, the essence of the practice lies in intention. A simple moment of thanks, a silent acknowledgement, or a heartfelt wish for healing carries the same effect. What matters is sincerity and presence. The body responds to authenticity, not performance. The blessing also creates continuity between the inner and outer worlds. It reminds the eater that nourishment is not only physical. Life enters through food, but it is sustained through awareness. When this connection is honored, eating becomes an integrated experience rather than a fragmented one. The person feels more whole, more grounded, and more connected to their body. Over time, consistent blessing before meals rewires the relationship with food. Meals stop being rushed interruptions and become moments of restoration. The body begins to trust that nourishment will come in a calm and supportive way. This trust improves digestive strength and overall vitality. Healing becomes more accessible because the body is no longer constantly bracing itself. The modern tendency to dismiss such practices as unnecessary or outdated overlooks their practical value. The ancient world did not separate spirituality from health because it observed their inseparable nature. Blessing food was not about pleasing the divine alone. It was about aligning the human system with the process of nourishment. It was wisdom expressed through simplicity. In conclusion, blessing food before eating is one of the most effective and accessible ways to activate healing. It requires no special tools, no cost, and no complex knowledge. It only requires a moment of presence. That moment calms the nervous system, opens the body to nourishment, and transforms eating from a mechanical act into a healing one. By restoring this ancient practice, food regains its true purpose, not merely to fill the body, but to restore life, balance, and well-being from the inside out. In the ancient understanding of health, speed was seen as one of the greatest enemies of the body. Life was meant to move with rhythm, not with constant urgency. Eating, in particular, was approached with patience and respect, because the body requires time to recognize, receive, and respond to nourishment. When food is eaten slowly, the body engages with it intelligently. When food is eaten in haste, the body is overwhelmed, and nourishment turns into strain. This is why rushed eating was viewed not merely as a bad habit, but as a form of silent self-harm. The body is designed to communicate continuously, especially during meals. Signals of hunger, satisfaction, and fullness arise naturally when the eating process is allowed to unfold at its proper pace. When eating is rushed, these signals are ignored or missed entirely. The body does not have time to register what is happening, and the eater often consumes far more than needed. This excess is not a sign of weakness, but of miscommunication between the mind and the body caused by speed. Ancient wisdom recognized that digestion begins long before food reaches the stomach. It begins with sight, smell, and anticipation. When a person slows down, these early stages of digestion are activated. Saliva production increases, enzymes prepare, and the stomach becomes ready to receive food. Rushing bypasses these stages, forcing the body to react rather than prepare. This reactive state weakens digestion and leads to discomfort, heaviness, and fatigue. Modern life conditions people to treat meals as obstacles to get through rather than experiences to engage with. Eating while standing, driving, or working trains the body to associate food with tension and distraction. Over time, this creates chronic digestive stress. The body begins to struggle with even simple meals because it has learned to expect urgency rather than care. This pattern is subtle, but its effects accumulate over years. Slow eating, by contrast, restores cooperation within the body. Each bite is processed more thoroughly, and nutrients are absorbed more efficiently. Satisfaction arises naturally, reducing the desire for excess. The body feels respected, and in return, it functions more smoothly. Energy remains stable after meals instead of crashing. This is not due to the food alone, but to the pace at which it is consumed. Rushing also disconnects people from the experience of eating. Taste becomes dull, enjoyment decreases, and food is consumed without awareness. This lack of satisfaction often leads to further eating in search of fulfillment that never arrives. Ancient teachings emphasized savoring each bite, not for indulgence but for completeness. When food is truly tasted and appreciated, the body feels complete with less. Speed at the table also reflects deeper patterns of life. A person who rushes through meals often rushes through rest, reflection, and connection. The body mirrors this inner state by remaining in constant alertness. Eating slowly interrupts this cycle. It forces a pause, grounding the person in the present moment. This pause has a calming effect on the nervous system, which directly supports digestion and healing. From a physiological perspective, slow eating allows the parasympathetic nervous system, the system responsible for rest and repair, to activate. This system governs digestion, immune response, and cellular renewal. When eating is rushed, the sympathetic nervous system dominates, prioritizing action and defense. Food consumed under this influence is not used optimally. Ancient wisdom may not have named these systems, but it understood their effects through observation. Choosing to eat slowly is an act of self-respect. It sends a message to the body that it is worthy of care and attention. This message has profound implications beyond digestion. It influences how a person relates to stress, rest, and balance in daily life. Slow eating becomes a training ground for presence and patience. Over time, the practice of slowing down at meals reshapes health in subtle but powerful ways. Digestive discomfort decreases, energy improves, and the relationship with food becomes calmer. Eating stops being a rushed necessity and becomes a restorative pause in the day. The body responds by becoming more resilient and less reactive. In conclusion, rushed eating is not harmless. It quietly undermines the body's natural intelligence. Speed robs the body of the time it needs to recognize and use nourishment effectively. Slow eating restores communication, respect, and balance. By choosing to eat with patience and awareness, food regains its healing potential. This ancient wisdom reminds us that health is not only about what we eat, but about the pace at which we allow life to enter us. Ancient wisdom taught that the purpose of eating was not merely to satisfy hunger, but to sustain life in a balanced and harmonious way. Food was understood as a bridge between the physical body and the deeper forces that keep it alive. When this bridge was honored, the body thrived. When it was neglected, the body suffered. One of the clearest expressions of this wisdom was the idea that food could either support life or quietly drain it, depending on how it was approached. Eating was never meant to be an unconscious act. In the modern world, food is often treated as fuel or entertainment. People eat out of boredom, stress, habit, or emotional need. This approach separates eating from its original purpose and places an unnecessary burden on the body. When food is used to manage emotions, the body is forced to process not only physical substances but also unresolved psychological tension. Over time, this confuses hunger signals and disrupts natural balance. Ancient cultures recognized this danger and placed clear boundaries around eating to protect both body and mind. Eating was meant to be a response to true hunger, not to emotional discomfort. When this distinction is lost, the body enters a state of confusion. It receives food when it does not need it and is deprived when it does. This irregularity weakens digestion and creates cycles of craving and dissatisfaction. The ancient approach emphasized listening to the body and honoring its signals. Hunger was respected and fullness was acknowledged. This simplicity preserved health without rigid rules. Another essential aspect of ancient eating was the recognition of rhythm. Life follows cycles, day and night, work and rest, hunger and satisfaction. Eating in harmony with these cycles supported vitality. Modern life disrupts this rhythm through irregular meals, late-night eating, and constant snacking. The body struggles to adapt to this unpredictability, leading to fatigue and imbalance. Ancient wisdom taught that respecting rhythm restores order within the body. Food was also eaten with intention. The eater knew why they were eating and what the meal was meant to provide. This clarity reduced excess and strengthened satisfaction. When intention is absent, eating becomes automatic. People consume food without awareness, often continuing long after hunger has passed. The body then carries the burden of excess without the benefit of nourishment. Using food as comfort was understood as a sign of imbalance, not failure. Ancient cultures addressed emotional distress through community, reflection, prayer, or rest, not through overeating. This protected the digestive system from emotional overload. When emotions were processed separately, eating remained clean and supportive. The body could then trust that food would arrive for nourishment, not confusion. Over time, this clear relationship with food created resilience. The body became efficient at using what it received and releasing what it did not need. Energy remained stable, and illness was less common. Eating was not perfect or restrictive, but it was respectful. This respect allowed the body's natural intelligence to guide behavior. Modern approaches often focus on controlling food through rules and restrictions. Ancient wisdom focused on restoring awareness and trust. When trust is present, the body regulates itself. Cravings diminish and appetite becomes balanced. The need for constant control fades because the body is no longer in conflict with itself. The idea that food can quietly drain life when misused is not meant to create fear. It is meant to restore responsibility. Eating is a daily act with cumulative effects. Each meal either supports balance or contributes to imbalance. Awareness transforms this reality into empowerment rather than anxiety. In conclusion, eating was never meant to be automatic or emotionally driven. It was meant to be intentional, rhythmic, and respectful. When food is used to replace emotional care or ignore the body's signals, it becomes a silent drain on vitality. When food is used as it was intended, to nourish true hunger in harmony with natural rhythms, it becomes a source of strength and balance. By returning to this ancient understanding, eating once again supports life instead of quietly diminishing it. Ancient wisdom taught that eating was not only a physical necessity, but a sacred opportunity repeated every day. Each meal was seen as a chance to restore balance, strengthen life force, and realign the individual with the natural order. Food itself was never viewed as the sole source of health. Rather, health emerged from the relationship between the eater and what was eaten. When that relationship was respectful and conscious, vitality followed. When it was careless or disconnected, imbalance slowly appeared. One of the most powerful ideas passed down through generations was that eating could either awaken life or dull it. This depended on the level of awareness brought to the table. Awareness meant being present with the act of eating, recognizing hunger, tasting food fully, and noticing the body's response. Without this presence, eating became mechanical. The body continued to receive food, but the deeper systems that regulate balance and healing were left disengaged. Modern life encourages constant distraction, and meals are often treated as moments to multitask rather than moments to restore. Eating while working, watching, or worrying divides attention and confuses the body. The body receives mixed signals, nourishment is coming, but the mind is elsewhere. This split weakens digestion and dulls satisfaction. Over time, this pattern trains the body to expect food without care, leading to chronic dissatisfaction and fatigue. Ancient cultures understood that attention itself was nourishing. When food was eaten with full attention, the body responded with efficiency and calm. The senses played an essential role in this process. Seeing the food, smelling it, and tasting it slowly activated digestive responses that prepared the body to receive nutrients. This sensory engagement was not indulgent, it was functional. It ensured that the body was fully involved in the act of nourishment. Another essential element of this wisdom was the understanding that eating is cumulative. One rushed or distracted meal may not cause immediate harm, but years of such meals gradually wear down the system. Ancient teachers emphasized consistency over perfection. Eating with awareness most of the time was enough to preserve health. The body responded not to occasional effort, but to sustained respect. This approach also reduced fear around food. When eating was conscious and balanced, there was no need for extreme rules or constant restriction. The body naturally regulated appetite and preference. Cravings softened because the body felt heard. Satisfaction increased because food was truly experienced rather than consumed mindlessly. Eating became simpler and more intuitive. The sacredness of eating did not require elaborate rituals. It was expressed through small, intentional actions, sitting down, slowing the pace, and giving attention to the meal. These actions communicated respect to the body. Respect, in turn, allowed the body to function optimally. When the body feels respected, it cooperates rather than resists. Over time, this way of eating influenced more than digestion. It affected mood, energy, and clarity. Meals became moments of grounding in a busy day. They offered a pause from mental noise and external pressure. This pause restored balance and supported emotional well-being. The act of eating became a form of daily meditation, anchoring the individual in the present moment. The modern separation between spirituality and daily habits did not exist in ancient thinking. Eating was spiritual because it sustained life. When awareness was present, eating aligned the individual with the natural flow of giving and receiving. Food came from the earth, life was supported, and gratitude completed the cycle. This alignment strengthened both body and spirit. In conclusion, eating was never meant to be rushed, distracted, or unconscious. It was meant to be an act of presence and respect. When awareness is restored to the table, food regains its true power to nourish and heal. Each meal becomes an opportunity to support life rather than drain it. By returning to this ancient understanding, eating transforms from a routine necessity into a daily practice of balance, vitality, and mindful living.